what's going on, look at what the Democrats deny or say other people are doing, and that's what they're really doing. There you go with insider trading.
Yeah, that's right. It's the old Russian playbook, as
yes.
they've explained. That they accuse you of doing whatever they're doing at that moment,
exactly.
And it's a tactic used by the extreme left. But now the Speaker of the House, Patrice, who a week ago was an extreme right-wing Christian nationalist and too far to the right for America, is now a communist. They're running around calling Joe Scarborough, who's mentally ill, is calling Donald Trump and the Speaker of the House communists.
I mean, I thought Joe Scarborough was a Republican or conservative, but I think he probably lost that moniker a long time ago. I mean, it's interesting. Speaker Johnson is trying to control the size of government, trying to ensure that we are not wasting resources or sending money into other countries without ensuring that our budget is not being exploded. And he's the communist. It's a fun line that I think she's using, and I think that they're trying to use, to your point, trying to change the narrative. But when you look at the Biden foreign policy across the Middle East right now, there are so many contradictions, and there's so much exposure for why both Biden and, frankly, Obama policies, particularly when it comes to Iran, particularly when it comes to all those allies and those terrorists in that region, they have been woefully wrong, and we are now suffering the consequences because of it.
Yeah, it is quite remarkable, I've got to say. While Biden's foreign policy is, of course, all over the place, Iran, who's gotten billions and billions of dollars from Barack Obama and now Joe Biden, too, Iran is using indecisiveness here in the United States to ramp up the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea. A commercial ship trying to get into the Red Sea this week was forced to abandon ship. It's the first time this has happened following a Houthi attack. An extraordinary turn of events. The U.S. Central Command revealed that on Sunday evening, Houthis launched 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles, thanks to Iran, of course, and we fund Iran, toward this Belize-flagged UK-owned bulk carrier, a big ship, a very large ship. They had to abandon ship, and it looks like it may go down in the sea there. And today, it happened again. This time, missiles aimed at a Greek-flagged but U.S.-owned grain carrier, another great big ship, trying to get to the Suez Canal. A 16 minutes interview with U.S. Navy Admiral. The Admiral admitted that these attacks are only continuing because the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, they're inside of Yemen, operating inside Yemen, working side by side with the Houthis.
Could the Houthis do this without Iranian support?
No. For a decade, the Iranians have been supplying the Houthis. They've been resupplying them. They're resupplying them as we sit here right now. At sea, we know this is happening. They're advising them, and they're providing targeting information. This is crystal clear. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is inside Yemen, and they are serving side by side with the Houthis.
Far be it for me to correct the Admiral, but it's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, not the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. He'll get it right the next time, I'm sure. So, Jason, apparently the Speaker of the House is a communist, and I saw it on MSDNC. It must be true. And former fake Republican congressman, and Donald Trump, they're communists. They've surrendered. They've fallen to the communists.
So I think what Joe Scarborough, I certainly don't speak for Joe Scarborough, but I think what he was trying to convey is that one of the goals of Vladimir Putin is to reestablish the Soviet Union and to get some of that territory back that was lost. He felt very insulted by that as an ethnic Russian. And so he wants that. And in order to do that, I mean, if you look at, of course, the USSR, we're communists. So I think he's making that tie. I don't think Vladimir Putin is a communist, not with all of the...
Oh, he's a communist. He's a criminal. They were communists.
I don't know. Criminal. Yeah, I think he's a criminal.
I think he's both.
Yeah, most communists were, Stalin was a communist and a criminal.
Yeah, I would say
Not
that...
Russia.
that
so perestroika was the worst thing that ever happened to Russia.
Right. I would say with all of the oligarchs and all that, it's more of an oligarchy than communism in Russia. That's why I'm saying he's not a communist, is that he makes sure that certain people have and other people don't.
Oh, hypocritical communists.
Right.
Hypocritical.
Well, the Chinese communists and the Russian communists realized with the fall of the Soviet Union that the reason the Soviet Union fell was because they didn't have the economic power to stand on their own 2 feet. So they decided they had to have enough corrupt capitalism to keep their criminal enterprise going. And I mean, since Lenin, the Soviet Union, straight through to the end, was a criminal enterprise that butchered human beings by the millions and went from country to country slaughtering people in the name of bringing, communist slavery to the world. But to say that Putin's not a communist is,
And he's backed by the oligarchs. It's only with his blessing that the oligarchs.
Look at the principles of communism. He is not following those.
Well, that's why it's hypocritical.
Who did?
It's nationalizing property. It is going after your political opponents. It is about rigged elections.
Like we do.
I don't know. That just
Right.
sounds like a communist to me.
It does.
But
Jailing your political enemies.
Exactly. I think when you look at the fact that the United States under President Trump had put strong sanctions, they took 52 policy actions against Putin and against Russia. Putin did not attack Ukraine during the Trump presidency. Now you see this never-ending war happening between Ukraine and Russia. And then, we're still waiting to get a response from President Biden on what's going to happen following the death of Navalny. They have talked about more Russian sanctions. Let's see. But the reality is you see a patchwork in the foreign policy decisions being made where the U.S. is very reactionary, where we're going to end up in an escalated situation in the Middle East and what you're seeing with the Houthis and Iran. And I just don't see this. I only see this getting more complicated and not less complicated.
And that's because they've taken the cues from us. And as Patrice mentioned just earlier, she said that this all stems from Obama's policies. It was when Obama was still in office that Putin first went into Crimea. That was his little first test to see if we would react.
No, that's exactly right. And then he was quaking in his moccasins while Trump was in the White House, and he wasn't going to do anything because he knew he'd get kicked in the pants. And they're all, you mentioned the sanctions and the oil and so on, which strangled him economically. And he tried to convince Germany to not be dependent on Russia for their natural gas and their energy. And they laughed. Who's laughing now? And honestly, and Putin, this is communism. Yeah. Putin is he's a KGB, lifetime KGB.
He's only, though, in power because he has the blessing and the support of the oligarchs. And the oligarchs only exist because Putin allows them to exist.
That's exactly right.
So actually, there's a greater economic disparity in Russia than there is anywhere else in the world. And actually, those oligarchs are supposed to get out, go to London.
I'm just saying that's not communism.
As
hypocritical communism.
Yeah, well,
as the way it was spelled out by
the Soviet Union. The same thing. They all had their dachas on the Black Sea, and they all had theirs when nobody else.
Worse than the
professor versus economist. This is fun. This is a good discussion.
Still to come in this hour,